News Radio 700 WLW.
And Rocket's been around for years. It's called Cybersquatting. You go and you poach a website for as little as $10. You buy a domain name.
Yep.
And then when somebody comes along who wants to use it, in this case, they wanted to use a little thing called harriswalls.com. Already taken.
And could you imagine, they're making all right, this is who it's going to be, the Harris campaign. All right, let's go ahead and buy that web. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, who has this? Oh, some 36-year-old kid named Jeremy Ish, I believe is his name, who does this. And he bought it a while ago and just kind of hedged his bet, had good political instincts, and now he owns that thing, and it's worth some more money.
Yeah, he paid $10 for it. Got $15,000 in return. Now, the legality of all of this escapes me with patent laws, copyright laws, and whatnot. That's the reason we call in an expert. We bring in the patent professor, our good friend John Rizvi. John, as always, a pleasure to have you back.
Yeah, it's always great to be here. Thank you.
So, John, explain the legalities here when you can trademark a name. Apparently, how does this work?
Yeah, no, I can tell you're grappling with this, and that's not unusual. This has taken a lot of people by surprise, and that's the key element to focus on is timing, and that's really what separates a cyber squatter from, say, if they want to call themselves a domain investor. And one is illegal under the Anti-Cybersquatting Consumer Protection Act, and you can't be a cyber squatter. A domain investor, on the other hand, is okay. So what's the difference? The difference is at the time you register the domain name, does some other business or entity have legal rights to that name? And if they have a trademark or they have a business that exists, in the early days of the Internet, prior to it's known as the ACPA, the Anti-Cybersquatting Consumer Protection Act. Prior to the ACPA, there's a bunch of kids, like you call a 36-year-old a kid. At that time, I think it was 17 or 19-year-old that registered McDonald's.com and held it hostage.
Nice.
Tried to force McDonald's to purchase it. At that point, these companies ended up purchasing domain names because there was no legal recourse to try to get them back. But the ACPA changed all of that. So now if you're registering a domain name that another business has previous rights to, they have recourse. The brilliance, if you can call it that, first of all, the prediction way back in 2020 that in 2024 harriswalls.com would have any value. Like there's a lot of brilliance there. But more than that is that at the time he registered it, there was no ticket for Harris Walls. There was no pre-existing trademarks or any legitimate interest. So timing is everything. And this is not the first time that this attorney's done this. Like in 2016, he was able to sell ClintonCain.com, which he registered about 5 years prior to that. The interesting thing is he didn't sell it to the Clinton campaign. He tried to, and they offered $2,000. So he went to the Trump campaign. Well, actually, an anonymous purchaser purchased it for $15,000, which later on turned out to be the Trump campaign, and they used Clinton Cain to really sabotage the Clinton campaign. So they learned their lesson by not buying the domain name that was available, or not offering anything more than $2,000 for it. And the Trump campaign's really been very astute to this. Like they registered JebBush.com. They didn't even have to buy it from anyone. They registered it prior to the election and used that to, again, rip Jeb Bush and build up Trump. So this is something that's becoming more common in political campaigns. So there's value to these domain names. But apparently, usually the advice is snap them up as soon as you can. But what's the possible chances? There was no Harris Walls election committee back then. Who was going to snap it up? I guess domain investors. And that's exactly what happened.
So, I mean, if I understand you correctly, timing is the issue, right? So if your business is established, then someone can they can't go ahead and buy that name if that's the name of the business. But if it happened years before, that they can. I'm trying to understand the timing of it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have a business that that's got a trademark, and even if you don't have a trademark, you've been in business for some time, you have common law rights, and then somebody snaps up your domain name, one of the things you have to show is bad faith. So there's a lot of factors to use, but if the person that has that domain name does not have any legitimate rights to it, they don't have a business of their own, they don't have a trademark, and possibly the worst thing they can do is reach out to you and try to sell that domain name to you, because that can be used against them to show bad faith. Like, hey, this person specifically registered my business's name because I didn't register it. They realized this, snapped it up, and are now holding it hostage and trying to sell it to me. That's a classic bad faith, and that you can use to try to get your domain name back. The problem in the reason that doesn't work in these political domain investing situations is that it's all timing. At the time of registering harriswalsh.com, there was no Harris Walsh campaign. So there's nobody that had an interest to that name at that time. That may change. Okay. Of course, there might be future legislation that's passed to try to prevent this as well, to add some sort of recourse for when political domain names are snapped up.
All right. So with that said, I told Ed and the listeners before we went to break, I wrote a book in 2020. And I was, setting up my website, and I wanted to, buy RockyBoyman.com. Well, someone had already previously bought it, so my publisher reached out to that person. They said, "Okay, $5,000 is what it's going to take to get it." Would I have had a case to go after that, or how's that work?
Yeah. So if you had that, you didn't have a trademark, but if you had legitimate business that you were conducting, I don't know if a book, just simply having the book would be enough, but it might be. Then you might not have. I mean, can I make the case?
Yeah, just being a radio host, kind of being, I am my own business, more or less, right?
Could you're a known factor.
Yeah, certainly the publicity, the name recognition that you have, like all of that can go to in your favor. I mean, interestingly enough, even the patent professor himself, John Rizvi, I had noticed that johnrizvi.com was taken, and I assumed it was, again, a nefarious purpose. I thought it was a cyber squatter trying to leverage the value of my name and my brand, and because I'm a well-known patent attorney, and I brought a case. Unfortunately for me, I had never met another person in my entire life named John Rizvi, but in his defense, he uploaded his passport, driver's license, birth certificate, and the poor guy was named John Rizvi. So I was not able to show bad faith because he had a legitimate, bona fide prior use that was justified. And I could prove none of the bad faith factors. He hadn't reached out to me trying to sell johnrizvi.com. None of those things applied. So these things really turn on looking at, of course, timing is important, but also the purpose that somebody registers a domain name. Like if they register it specifically, have no business interest of their own. They never try to build a website. They never try to do anything. And the only thing they ever do is reach out to another business that existed at the time they registered the domain name, and they try to sell it to that business, then they're on shaky ground.
All right. Well, always makes our heads spin a little bit, John, and thanks for helping us kind of sort through it all. We really appreciate it. People want to find out more. Where can they go?
They go to thepatentprofessor.com. That's our website. Also, that's our handle on all social media. So go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Just type in The Patent Professor, and you'll find me. And unfortunately, I can't say go to johnrisby.com.
Right. Well, I was just going to ask you, John, just out of curiosity, what does the other John Rizvi do?
Completely unrelated. Some sort of medical, like, I don't know, like something in the medical field, which...
That's crazy, man. Well, John, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Take care.